Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In previous video, we have created the Pojo class of product and we have written three APIs, that is add new product, get all product and update product. So if you haven't watched the video, then just go to description there. I put the link for the previous video, and if you are watching this video after a while, then you will find the further videos link also in the description of this video. Okay, so in this video, we are going to write the remaining APIs of the product, that is delete product, update status of the product, get by category, and get by ID. So let's start with that. So first thing what we are going to do is we are going to write one API to delete the product. So this will be a post mapping. So post mapping, and I'm going to give the path on which we are going to hit it. So slash delete simply, and in the path variable I'm going to take the ID. After this API is going to return a response entity, and it will be of type string, and it will be delete product, and it will accept one variable, that is ID in path variable. So path variable, and it will be an integer, and it will be ID, like this. After this, if we move back over here, we have to move to the product rest simple. So if I move back over here, it will show an issue because we have to implement that one. So just move back to the top and hover over here, click on this one and click on OK. It will implement this one, that is delete product. After this, what we have to do is we have to just replace this null with cafe utils dot get response entity. Inside this one, we have to pass cafe constant dot something went wrong, and HTTP status will be internal server error in the case of exception is thrown. So we have to put the try and catch block over here, exception ex dot print start rest. This is how the exception is handled, as we have seen these already in the previous videos. Next thing what we want to do is we have to call the service. This method we have to call from the service. So return product service dot, and we have to copy this one, delete product, just paste it over here, and we have to pass the ID inside this one, like this. So what happened is this one is showing an error because this doesn't exist on the product service, so we have to declare it over there. Just double click on this, and here we have to write response entity, and it is going to return string, paste the name, and it's expect one integer ID, like this one. Now if I move to the product rest simple, now the issue is gone. Next thing, we have to move to the product service simple, and here we are going to actually write the actual business logic over here. So now move back to the bottom and just move back to the top and hover over here, this one, implement methods like this, and hit OK, and here we go. Next thing, first we have to put the try and catch block for the exception handling. If anything goes wrong, then this will happen. So first I'm going to print the exception and return cafe utils dot get response entity, cafe constants dot something went wrong, and HTTP status will be internal server error, like this one. Now first thing what we have to do is we have to check that if this user, the current user who is going to delete the product, this user is the admin. So if jwt filter dot is admin, if this is not an admin, then in that case what I want to do is press the Ctrl Alt L to format everything. Just make some space. Let me just minimize this one. Okay, here what I want to do is return cafe utils dot get response entity, and here we're going to return the cafe constants dot unauthorized access, and HTTP status will be unauthorized, like this one. Next thing, if this is a current user is an admin, then what we will do, we will first find that if that ID exists in our database or not. So product DAO, which we have for this, we have already created the object, that is we have already auto wired it. If you go to the top, you will find it, product DAO is here already auto wired. So we will use the JPA methods, that is find by ID, and inside this one we have to pass the ID, and this one is going to return an optional object. So optional is equal to this one, After this, what we will do is we will check that if this optional is not empty. So optional dot is empty. If this is not empty, then we are going to delete. Else we will return sub exception. Else you can simply write return cafe utils dot get response entity. Inside this we will pass product id does not exist. You can write anything as per your choice, like product doesn't exist, like this one, and HTTP status will be okay. Okay. Next thing, this is the case where if we don't find the product ID. Now, if we find the product ID, then what we will do is product DAO dot delete by ID, and we will pass the ID. After this, now this product will automatically be deleted, and next thing we have to simply pass the cafe utils dot get response entity. Inside this one we will write the message product deleted successfully, and the HTTP status code will be 200. That is okay. Now let's start this and let's test it. So this is a delete product, and here we go. So what we did over here is we got on one ID, and first we will check if this current user is admin. If this current user is not an admin, then we will return unauthorized access, and the status code will be whatever the status code for this unauthorized. Just if ctrl and click on this, and it will show 401. Okay. Next thing, what will happen is if this is an admin and it enters inside this one, then first we are going to find into the database if this data ID actually exists or not. So it will return an optional object. So if this ID exists, then we will delete that ID and return the message successfully deleted. And if this ID doesn't exist, then we will return product ID doesn't exist. So let's start our application and let's test this API. Now move back to this one, and I've already opened my MySQL and I'm using the same database, and I'm going to select star from product like this one, and here we have tomato pizza, so I'm going to delete this one with the ID 2. So I minimize it, and here you can see this. Now my application is up and running on port 8081. So just move back over here. First I'm going to hit the login API in order to get the token, so I'm going to hit it. Now we have the token over here. I'm going to copy this one, click on next, select this and select post. Move back over here. I'm going to copy this one, paste it over here, go to authentication, select this one, bearer token, just like this, and I'm going to replace the token. So I have replaced the token over here, and this is not update this time, this is delete. And I'm going to pass a wrong ID, that is 15, and hit enter. Product ID doesn't exist. It goes here. You can see this, the query is fired. I'm not see the query for now. You can check it out in your system. So here you can see this it's fired this query find by ID, and it's the return nothing, that is empty. Optional is empty. Then we have returned product ID doesn't exist. If I move back over here, you can see this. Now I'm going to pass 2. So you can see this. For now we have the record with the ID 2. So I'm going to just send it to, just send it, and here you can see this product deleted successfully. If I go over here and again I'm going to execute the same query, select start from product, and if I hit enter, and here you can see this, now only we have only one record. So this is how the delete API works, and it's working right now. Okay, next thing, just move back to this one and just stop this. Now we are done with the delete product API. So move to the product rest, and next API which we are going to write is update the status of the product. So just make some space, and this will be a post mapping, and we're going to set the path over here. So path will be update status response entity, and we will pass a string inside this one. We will return the string and update status, and it will accept one request body, and it will be of type map of string comma string request map, something like this. Just move to the product REST temple, and here we will implement that one. So just go to the top, hover over this, click on this one and click on OK, and here we go. Next thing what we have to do is we have to simply return cafe utils dot get response entity, and say this one we have to pass cafe constants dot something went wrong, and http status will be internal server error, that is 500. And this is the case where we are going to return in the case of exception. So try catch exception ex and ex.print star trace. So now what happen if anything goes wrong inside the try block? So it will print the exception, we will catch the exception and print it, and it will return this message. Okay, next thing what we have to do is return service product service dot update status. So just to copy this one and paste it over here, and just pass a request map inside this one. Now the task at the REST simple is done. It's showing an error because we don't have this method on the service. So just move back over here, and I'm going to write it quickly. So response entity, and it's going to return of type string. Simply paste the method name, and this will accept one map of string comma string object request map, something like this. And if I move back over here, you can see this, now the issue is gone. Next thing we need to move to the product service impulse. So make some space over here and just move to the top, hover over it, click on this one and click on OK, and now here we go, update status, we have it over here. Next thing what we have to do is we have to actually put the try catch block. So try and catch exception ex.print star trace, Ctrl Alt L to format everything. And here first thing what we will do is that if anything goes wrong, then we will return a cafe utils dot get response entity cafe constant dot something went wrong, and http status will be internal server error, like this one. And next thing what we have to do is we have to move to the try block, and here first we will check that if the current user is admin. So if jwt filter dot is admin, make some space, Ctrl Alt L to format if you are using IntelliJ. If this is not an admin, then simply return cafe utils dot get response entity and cafe constants dot unauthorized access http status dot unauthorized, that is 401. Now we move to the if part, and here first we will check that if that product exists with that ID or not. So product DAO dot find by ID. Inside this one we have to pass the ID. So request map, it's a string of string type, so we have to pass the string into the integer type, because find by ID except one integer. So integer dot parse int request map dot get, we have to get the ID, so ID, and this is going to return object of optional type. So optional is equal to this one. Now if this optional is empty, then we will check for that. So if not optional dot as empty, then we will update the status, else we will return the message. So return cafe utils dot get response entity, and we will return product ID doesn't exist, http status dot OK, like this one. And if this exists, then what we want to do, we want to perform some operations. So product DAO dot update product status, and so this one we have to pass request map dot get status. Next thing we need to pass the ID. So integer dot parse int and request map dot get ID, like this one. This will show an error because this method doesn't exist in the product DAO. So we are going to write one query for the same. So update product status. So I'm going to copy it and just move to the product DAO. So here we go. Here we will paste that. And then this one, after updating, it's going to return an object of type integer. It will return one integer, and this will accept two arguments. One is status and one is id. So at the rate param, and we have to name this one status, and it is of type is string status. And second, we will accept integer. So at the rate param, and the name will be id integer id, like this one. And this is performing an update operation, so we have to put some annotation over this one, that is at the rate modifying. If you don't put it, it will not update your record. And at the rate transactional, like this one. If we move back to the product service simple, then here you can see this. Now the issue is gone. Next thing what we have to do is, still the task for this update product status is not done yet, because we have to write the named query on the product. So before we write the named query, I'm going to return, suppose we have already written it. So after the updating, we have to return this completion message, right? So we have to return that. So return cafe urls.get response entity, and here we are going to return product status updated successfully. And HTTP status will be okay, like this one. Now the task over here is done. Next thing, we have to simply write the query for this one, update product status. So we move back over here to the product DAO, and you can see this, we have already declared it over here. So just copy this one and move to the product, and here we have to write one named query. So make some space at the rate named query, and we have to pass the name, and the name will be product dot, and we have to paste the name query, and we have to write the query over here. So simply we have to write update product p set p dot status. This key will be the same as this one, not this one, the below one. If you change the S to capital, then you have to write the capital over there. So S status update product p set p dot status, where p dot id is equal to id. Okay, so we have missed one stuff. So is equal to colon status. Whatever the key you have written over here after the colon, this will be the same as over here, this one and this one. It will be exactly same. Okay, so we have put double equals over here, so this one is good now. So update product p set p dot status is equal to status, where p dot id is equal to this one. Now our API is ready. Now move to the product rest and just start the application. Let's check if this works or not. So our Tomcat started at 80 once. Let me just minimize it and move back over here. I'm going to copy the token first. So move back to this one and just copy the token. New, select authentication, select this one, pure token, just paste the token and just copy the URL over here. Paste it. Just change this one to update status. And this is a post mapping, so click on this post mapping body, and we have to select this raw, select the JSON, and here we have to pass this JSON. First is status and the second one is ID. ID is 1 because we have only one product in our database. Here you can see this, and the status is true. I'm going to change this one to false. So like this one. Now send it. So here you can see this product status updated successfully. So if I move back over here and select this one, select the start from product, if I click on this, and you can see this false is updated now. Previously it was true. So I'm going to change this one to true. and send it. And here you can see this product updated successfully. So I'm going to try it again, and here you can see this true. If I'm going to pass the wrong ID over here, that is something like this, and send it, product ID doesn't exist. So this one is working fine. Next thing what we have to do is we have to write another API, that is get by category. Suppose I'm going to pass the category 5, so all the product exists in category 5, the data corresponding to that will be returned. Okay, so for that, just move back over here and make some space over here, and it will be a get mapping. So get mapping, and I'm going to pass the path. So path, and the path will be get by category, and we will accept the ID in the path variable. So ID, return a response entity of type list of product wrapper, get by category at the path variable, and it's of type integer and ID, like this one. Next thing, we have to move to the product rest simple. So here we have to make some space and go to the top, hover over it, just click on this one and select OK. After this, make some space, try, and catch exception ex.print star trace, and here we have to return the message or empty error list if something goes wrong. So return new response entity, and inside this one we will return new error list, and HTTP status code will be internal server error, that is 500, and everything is good now. Next thing what we have to do is we have to copy this name from here, and we're going to simply type return product service dot this one, and we have to pass the ID inside this one. This will show an issue because this method doesn't exist on the service. So move back over here. Here we have to type response entity, and it's going to return a list of product wrapper, and here we have to paste the name, and it will accept one ID of type integer. So if I move back to this one, and the issue is gone. Next thing, we have to move to the product service impl and make some space over here, and just go to the top and hover over this one, click on this and click on OK. Now this will implement the method, and we have to put the try and catch block over here. So try catch exception ex.print star trace, and if anything goes wrong, then again return an empty error list. So return new response entity new error list http status dot internal server error. Now this is good. Next thing what we have to do is we have to write the query. So return new response entity, and inside this one we have to write product DAO dot get product by category, and it will accept one ID, and HTTP status code will be OK, like this one. This is showing an error because this doesn't exist on the product DAO. So let me just copy this name and move to the product DAO over here, and here what we have to do is we have to write the query. First we have to declare it over here, so it will return a list of product wrapper, paste the name, and it will accept one ID. So at the rate param, inside this one we have to pass the ID. So ID, and it's of type integer, and it is ID. Now if you move to the product service impl, and you can see this, now the issue is gone. Now move back to this one, product DAO, and here you can see this. Now we have to write this query for this one. So move to the product, and here we have to write one named query. So just make some space and write at the rate named query, and name will be product dot and paste the name. You have to write the query over here, make some space, and here we have to write select new com dot, and we have to pass the full specified path for the wrapper. So this, we just copy this one as I've already explained it earlier, and close the bracket like this one. And we have to pass from product p, where p dot category dot id is equal to whatever the id we pass, and p dot status, that is product status, needs to be true. It means that it's active, like this one. Now the query is ready. Next thing, we have to select the columns, whatever the columns you want. So what we did over here is select whatever the values you need to select it from which table, that is product as p, where id for the category id is this one, and the product status is active. So here we are going to select few columns, that is, first we are going to select the p.id, second p.name. Only these two stuff we are going to select. For the same, we have to define the constructor into the wrapper class. So if we move back to the product wrapper, then we have to create the constructor for the same. So we need to store two stuff only. So public product wrapper, inside this one we have to store the integer. So integer id, comma, and we have to accept the name. So string name, like this one, and this dot id is equal to id, and this dot name is equal to name, like this one. Make some space, and now let's restart our application. So start and stop and run. Move back to the product rest. Just minimize it. Let's check that if our application started or not. So our application started on port 881. So just minimize it and just copy this one. Just move back over here. Click on this. I'm going to paste the path. Just move back over here. Copy this. Authentication, period token. Just paste it over here. This is a get call. Okay. So I'm going to copy this one, this much part, move back to over here, just paste it and hit send. So it will say 404 not found because we have to pass the ID also. So pass the ID 5. So send it, and here you can see this is returning empty because no category exists with the ID 5. So I'm going to pass 1. So if I move back over here, select start from category, we will see the category. And here we have 1 and 2. So inside 1 we have one product into the category pizza. So I'm going to pass 1 over here and send it, and here you can see this ID and corn pizza is returned, ID and name which we are expecting. Okay. So now the task till here is done. Next thing what we have to do is, now this API is working. Next thing what we have to do is we have to write one more API, that is to actually get by ID. So I'm going to give this method of get type get mapping, and we have to pass the path. So this will be get by ID, and we accept ID in the path variable, that is ID, and we return a response entity and type of list of wrapper or not the product wrapper only, because for the particular ID only one product will exist. So get product by ID, this one at the rate path variable integer ID. Move to the product rest simple, and here we have to implement that one. So make some space, go over here, hover over this one, implement method, and click on OK. After this, put the try and catch block. ex.print_trace, and make some space, serial alt and L in order to format everything. Return new response entity, and it will return new product wrapper, and HTTP status will be internal server error. If everything goes right, just copy this one and return product service dot this one and we have to pass the ID inside this one. This will show an error because this method doesn't exist on the product service, so we will declare it quickly. So move back over here, make some space, response entity, and it will return a product wrapper. Just paste it, and it will accept one integer ID. And now if you move back over here, now the issue is gone. Just move to the product service impl and click over here and go to the top, hover over this one, implement method, and click on OK. It will implement the method over here. So first we will put the try and catch block as usual. ex.print start trace, make some space. If anything goes wrong, then again new response entity and new product wrapper and http status dot internal server error, like this one. If everything goes right, then what I have to do is I have to simply return new response entity, and inside this one we will pass a product DAO dot get product by ID, and we have to pass the ID inside this one, and http status will be OK. This is showing an issue because this method doesn't exist on the product DAO. So let me just copy this one, get product by ID, and move back over here to the product DAO, and here we have to declare it. So this method is going to return a product wrapper. So product wrapper, and paste the name, and this is going to accept one ID. So param ID, integer ID, like this one. Next thing what we have to do is we have to move to the product over here, and here we have to write the query for the same. So just make some space over here and write one named query, and name is equal to product dot and the name which we have copied, and we have to write the query for the same. So query is equal to, and select, and we have to copy this one, new common product wrapper from here to here, and just paste it and just close it. And after this what we have to do is we have to simply write from product P, where P dot ID is equal to, in the colon we have to pass the ID. Just save it, and we have to select the columns, whatever columns we want. P dot ID, P dot name, P dot description, and P dot price. These columns which we want. So ID, product name, description, and price which we are expecting. So next thing what we have to do is, now the query is ready. Next thing we have to move to this one, and here the error is gone. Next we have to move to the product wrapper. Here we have to define the constructor. So public product wrapper, and set this one we have to accept 4 arguments, that is integer ID, and next thing string name, string description, string, next thing is price, not a string, it's of type integer, so integer price. Make some space, and here we have to pass this one. So this dot ID is equal to ID. Next thing, this dot name is equal to name, this dot description is equal to description, this dot price is equal to price. Now press Alt L to format everything, and now our API is ready. So now move to the product REST, and now start the application, and let's test it. So starting, and here we go. Our application up and started at port 8081. So let me just minimize this and copy this one, get by ID, move back to the postman, and here open new tab and just copy this one, paste it, move back over here, copy the token. Okay, after this we have to pass the ID in the path variable. So I'm going to pass 2, because for the 2 we don't have any product for the record 2, and trying to hit this, and you can see this, it's returned 403 because we haven't pasted the token. So just make some space and we are a token, and we have to paste the token over here and just send it once again. And you can see this 200 and response is empty. So I'm going to pass one over here. So if I move back to the code and go to the run, and here you can see this. Now the query is being fired, selecting the 4 records on the basis of the ID, but we don't have any record corresponding to 2. So if I go over here in the product, we have only 1. So I'm going to pass 1 over here and just send it. And here you can see this, the ID is 1, the name is corn pizza, and the description is this, and the price is this one. So I'm not returning the status and category ID and name because we don't need it in this scenario. So this one is working fine. Now all the APIs for product is done. In the next video, from the next video onwards, we are going to see how to write the APIs for the billing part and how to generate the PDF and other stuff. Okay, so thanks for watching. Please hit like, subscribe and share with friends, and please follow us on Instagram. Thanks.